Hello and welcome to section 7.3 on how to solve roots. Oh yeah. Before we start solving about roots, I want to talk about shoes though. Shoes are like the best invention ever. Have you ever gone anywhere barefooted and stepped on something so sharp it like hurt forever? That has happened to me. Oh man, I'm so thankful for shoes. But there's one particular shoe that I'm a little confused about. It's a really popular brand of shoe that I have pictured here. My kids wear them. They are Vans. I don't know if you guys have Vans. I don't know what the big thing is about them. They're really expensive, but everybody loves wearing Vans. For me, like I said, I'm confused about Vans. Even the logo confuses me because I'm a math teacher and everything I look at, it's kind of mathy to me. So I look at Vans and I see this. I do not see a logo here. I see math. Do you guys see math? I am seeing crazy math. I see the square root symbol here. Square root. Look, do you see it? And then I see ANS, which stands for the answer. This is like a math question. Vans is a math question. In fact, today we're going to be solving problems just like this. We're going to have a square root. And inside the square root, we're going to put the answer. That's what we're actually looking for. We're going to put the x. And we're going to put something over here like a 5. And we're going to say, solve this for the answer. And the answer's right there. You see it? We just got to get x alone to find the answer. So I don't know what it is about Vans. It's kind of crazy. But today, we've got to learn how to solve these. And so let's get to that. Anytime we're trying to solve a square root, we're going to need to get it by itself. That's step number 1. Get the root by itself, or maybe we should call it the Vans. Get Vans by itself, okay? In this problem, the square root's already by itself, so we're ready to move on to step number 2. In step number 2, we need to undo the root. What's the opposite of a root? We learned it in the last lesson. Opposite of a root is a power or an exponent. So we're going to power both sides. Power both sides. So in this case, because it's a square root, I'm going to take both sides and raise it to the second power, because I know that a root will kill a power, or a power kills a root. That leaves me simply with x equals 5 squared is 25. Oh yeah, that makes sense. And you could easily check that answer by plugging it back in. So step 3 will be to solve. That's really it. It's a 4-step problem. Actually, probably, 4 steps, because you need to check it. Check, answer, answer. So that's the process here. Let's try something a little more. So here we got the square root of x plus 3 minus 4 equals 2. Let's get through our steps. Step number 1, get Vans by itself. Get the Vans by itself. So I got to get this by itself. I got to undo this minus 4. So we're going to go ahead and plus 4 to both sides. And when we do that, we've got the square root of x plus 3 equals 6. Look, Vans is now by itself. And so we're going to undo the square root by squaring both sides. Square both sides. When we do that, the square root and the square cancel out, leaving me with x plus 3 equals 6 squared, which is 36. We're going to finish solving by just minusing 3 to both sides to get x equals 33. And that's our answer. And of course, you can check that. If you plug 33 back in here, let's take a look. 33 plus 3 is 36. Square root of 36 is 6. 6 minus 4 equals 2. It works. Marvelous. You might have to deal with cube roots, but the steps are going to be exactly the same. Step number 1, get Vans by itself. We got to get the cube root by itself. So let's go ahead and add 1 to both sides to work on getting this square root, or this cube root, in this case by itself. 2x minus 5 equals 6. It's still not by itself. It's got this times by 2. So we're going to need to divide both sides by 2. Divide by 2, divide by 2. When I do that, I'm left with the cube root of 2x minus 5 equals 3. Now we've got the root by itself. We're ready to power both sides. Now in the past problems, we've been using a square. We're not going to square both sides because we need to get rid of a cube root. What's the opposite of a cube root? You bet. A cube. We're going to raise both sides to the 3rd power. That root kills the power, leaving me with 2x minus 5 equals 3 cubed, which is 27. We'll then just add 5 to both sides, plus 5 to get 2x equals, what's 27 plus 5? 32. Divide by 2 in the last step. When we divide both sides by 2, we get x equals 16. Boy, I just about ran out of room there. Let's check it to make sure that's right. I plug a 16 right here. 16 times 2 is 32, and 32 minus 5 is 27. Cube root of 27 is 3. 3 times 2 is 6, minus 1 is 5. That works just fine. 16 is our answer.
To the boards!
Okay, it's time for you to try these 3 problems. Go ahead and pause the video, take out your video notebook, and work on these 3. When you're ready to check your answers, unpause, and we'll see how you did. Welcome back. Let's do it. Here we go. We're going to follow this 4-step process. Step number 1, get the vans by itself. The square root's already by itself. So let's go ahead and power both sides. We'll raise both sides to the second power to undo the root. That leaves me with 2x plus 8 equals 100. Now we can just solve. Minus 8 to both sides. That gets me 2x equals 92. And then we'll just divide by 2 to both sides to get the answer of 46. You should check your answer. 46 times 2, that's 92, plus 8 is 100, square root of 100 is 10. Excellent. And so it does check out. Let's do question number 2 here. We've got the 4th root of x plus 1 plus 7 equals 9. Step 1, you've got to get the root by itself. So I'm going to minus 7 to both sides. That gets me the 4th root of x plus 1 equals 2. Now we're going to power both sides. This is a 4th root, so we're going to raise it to the 4th power. Again, we raise it to the 4th power because a 4th root is going to be canceled by a 4th power. That leaves me with x plus 1 equals 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. That's 16. Minus 1 to both sides, we get x equals 15. You should check it. 15 plus 1 is 16. 4th root of 16 is 2. 2 plus 7 is 9. Sweet. Last question, let's do it. Step number 1, get root by itself. It's already by itself. I love when that happens. Step 2, power both sides. Okay, so we'll raise both sides to the second power. In doing that, I get x plus 2 equals 9. All we got to do is minus 2 to both sides to get x equals 7. Now, I'm hoping you check this one because you're going to find out something weird happens. If you plug a 7 back into the original, we would get square root of 7 plus 2 equals negative 3. And the square root of 7 plus 2, that's 9. Square root of 9 equals negative 3. That we get 3 equals negative 3. Oh, that's bad. This one is not an answer. And our answer should be no soul. Careful. Always make sure to check your answers because sometimes you can do all the math right and still get the answer wrong because you might find the extraneous solution. Sometimes you might be faced with a question that looks like this, where once you get the square root by itself, it equals other stuff, not just a number. And all the other ones we were doing, we had the square root of x plus 5 equals like a number. But here we're left with it equaling x plus 5. Let's go ahead and follow the steps here. Step number 1, we get the root by itself. It's already done. Good. Step 2, we've got to power both sides. So I'm going to square both sides. Now, when you square both sides, you have to square the entire side. So notice here, you're squaring the root, but over here you've got to square the x plus 5. So here the root cancels out with the power, leaving me with x plus 1. But here we've got x minus 5 squared. It's a binomial squared. So we're going to have to write that out twice and then multiply it out. That gets me x squared minus 5x plus 25. This is an x squared, so it's a polynomial. We'll have to get it equal to 0. So we've got x plus 1 equals x squared minus 10x plus 25. Let's go ahead and minus an x over and minus the 1 over. So that gets me 0 equals x squared minus 11x plus 24. So we're going to have to use the AC rule to factor this. Factors of 24 that get me negative 11. Oh, let's see. There's 2 and 12. There's 8 and 3. Ooh, that'll work. 8 and 3. We'll make them both negative. And so that means this factors to x minus 8 and x minus 3. So when I set this equal to 0, x minus 8 equals 0, and this, x minus 3 equal to 0, I get two answers. I get x equals 8, and I get x equals 3. We do need to check both answers. So we finished solving. Now we need to check both answers. Remember, the original was x plus 1 equals x minus 5. Let's plug the 8 in. When I plug 8 in, I'm going to get square root of 8 plus 1, which is 9, equals 8 minus 5. That's 3 equals 3. That one checks out. So this is a good answer. Let's go ahead and plug in the 3. When I plug in the 3, I'll do that one in blue. I get square root of 3 plus 1 equals 3 minus 5. Square root of 4 is 2, and 3 minus 5 is negative 2. No way. That's not an answer. And so on this one, only x equals 8 is the answer. So be careful. You might get a problem where you get two answers. Maybe both of them work. Maybe only one works. Maybe none of them work. So always make sure to check your answers. Okay, it's your turn to try question number 4. Solve for the answer. Find the vans. Good luck. Okay, let's do it. Step number 1, get the root by itself. It's done. It's by itself. So we're now going to power both sides using a 2. Power. Square root cancels with a squared, leaving me with x minus 1 equals, I'll have to write this one out twice, x minus 3, x minus 3. So that's x squared minus 3x minus 3x plus 9. Okay, so x minus 1 equals x squared minus 6x plus 9. I'm going to get everything to one side, so minus the x and add a 1. And I get 0 equals x squared minus 7x plus 10. AC rule. What are the factors of 10? That'll get me a negative 7. 5 and 2. That's all I can see working. So this is going to be x minus 5 and x minus 2 equaling 0. When we set the x minus 5 equal to 0, we get x equals 5. And when we set the x minus 2 equals 0, we get x equals 2. You'll want to check both of these to make sure that it works. When I did it, the 5 works, and when you plug the 2 in, it does not work. You end up getting 1 equals negative 1. So that doesn't work. Our only answer would be x equals 5. Shoes almost always come in pairs, unless you have little kids, and then they lose them all the time. So we need to do a problem that has a double root in it. Take a look. What if we had something that looked like this? Square root of x plus 5 equals 5 minus root x. Ooh, take a look. This has 2 roots. It's got a vans over here and a vans over here. Oh man. Anytime you got a problem with 2 roots, step number 1, just get the root by itself. You got to get one root by itself. I already have that here with the square root of x plus 5. So I'm going to just leave it like that. I'm going to go ahead and move to the next step, which is to power both sides. So we'll square both sides. Now here, the power cancels with the root, just leaving me with x plus 5. But on this one, you still have to write it out twice. Ooh, so we're going to have to multiply this together using super distribution. 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times a negative root x is negative 5 root x. A negative root x times 5 is another 5 root x. And then a negative root x times negative root x is going to be a positive root x squared. And we know the square root of x squared is just going to be x. And so the problem looks like this. X plus 5 equals 25. Let's go ahead and keep simplifying here. I get x plus 5 equals 25. I'm going to put these roots together. That's minus 10 root x. So we had negative 5 root x minus 5 root x, a negative 5 and a negative 5 is negative 10 root x plus x. So notice we've gone ahead and we powered both sides, but we still have a root in our solution. And so therefore we're going to have to go back and repeat step number 1. We went from 2 roots. We started with 2 roots in our problem. Now we're down to 1 root. We're going to have to go back and get this root now by itself. So let's go ahead and move everything to the left. I'm going to go ahead and minus 25 over. And I'm also going to minus the x over. That's cool because the x's cancel out. I'm left with negative 20 equals negative 10 root x. Got to get this root x by itself. So let's go ahead and divide by negative 10. Divide by negative 10. Woo! Almost running out of room. Let's go over here. Negative 20 divided by negative 10 is 2 equals root x. Okay, so we got the root by itself again. Now we're ready to power both sides. We'll power both sides. We'll use a squared, and we end up getting x equals 4 as our answer. We should check that though. Don't ever trust one of these. If I plug in, the original question was square root of x plus 5. So that's 4 plus 5 equals 5 minus the square root of 4. Let's see. 4 plus 5 is 9. Root 9 is 3 equals 5 minus the square root of 4 is 2. 5 minus 4. Oh, it works. Yeah. So just be aware, you might have 2 roots. If you have 2 roots, get one of them by itself and then solve. Then get the next one by itself and solve. Here is a problem for you to try in your video notebook. Go ahead and pause the video and try to solve this one. Square root of x plus 8 plus the root x equals 4. When you're ready to check your answer, unpause your video. We'll see how you did. Welcome back. Let's do it. Step number 1, you got to get a root by itself. We have 2 roots on the same side. Let's go ahead and minus the root x over, minus root x, because you got to get one by itself. Okay, so we've got the square root of x plus 8 equals 4 minus root x. Let's power both sides. We'll go ahead and use a square here and a square here. Remember, the power cancels the root, leaving me with x plus 8. And here we're going to have to write this one out twice. 4 minus root x. Let's see. 4 times 4 is, I'm using super distribution, that's 16. 4 times root x is negative 4 root x. Negative root x times 4, that's negative 4 root x. And negative x times negative root x times negative root x, that's the same as last time. It's going to be plus x. We got to get everything to one side. All right, let's see. Let's combine our roots here. I get 16 minus 8 root x plus x. Let's go ahead and get this square root by itself. We'll minus the x over and minus the 16 over. That gets me negative 8 equals negative 8 root x. Okay, I got to get the root by itself, so divide by negative 8. Divide by negative 8. I keep running out of room down there. Negative 8 divided by negative 8 is 1 equals root x. Okay, power both sides again. We'll square both sides, and that gets me x equals, the square root, 1 squared is just 1. So x equals 1. Let's see if that works out. 1 plus 8 is 9. Square root of 9 is 3. Plus the square root of 1 is just 1. 3 plus 1 is 4. It works. Marvelous. You'll remember that the square root of x is a mother function. Mother function. Yep. And so we will have to be able to graph these. At times we'll be given equations, maybe something like this. I don't know, x plus 2 minus 3. And they might say graph this function. To graph a function, a square root function, it's not too hard. Step number 1, you do have to find the starting point. Find starting point. Okay. To find the starting point, you set the inside, set the ands of the vans equal to 0. That sounds funny. So in other words, you're going to take the inside x plus 2 and set that equal to 0 and solve it. So we would minus the 2 over, minus 2, and you get x equals negative 2. That's our starting point right there. So after that, step number 2, you're going to want to plug value So we'll draw an XY table, and then for step 3, you're going to plug the starting point in and 2 values to the left and right. So let me show you here. Let's draw my XY table. I'm going to have X and Y. I'm going to plug my -2 value in because you always plug your starting point in. And then pick some values to the left and to the right of it. So let's go -3. Let's go 0. And no, I lied. Let's go -1. And let's go, it helps if you pick numbers that will actually make this be a square root. So if I picked 7, 7 plus 2 would be 9. So that's what I'm going to do. You don't have to. You just might get decimals if you do it that way. So I'm picking a couple values to the left and to the right. Let's plug in these values here. When I plug in -3 in here, and you can use your calculator if you need to, -3 plus 2 is -1. You might remember, I'm going to bring up my calculator here really quick. You might remember back in chapter 1 that you can't have a negative under a square root. If I had -3, oh, I better use parentheses here. -3 plus 2, if you try to type a negative value in your under a square root, you get a non-real answer. So I can't actually plug -3 in. So I know that I'm not going to be able to go to the left. You see this square root? I can't plug in values over here. They'll become, you'll get negatives under the square root. But let's plug in -2. I want to plug in my answer. -2 plus 2 is 0. So I get -3. Now let's plug in -1. -1 plus 2 is 1. Square root of 1 is 1. And 1 minus 3 is -2. Now let's plug in that 7. 7 plus 2 is 9. I did that on purpose. I picked a number that would be an even root, or perfect square. So 7 plus 2 is 9. Square root of 9 is 3. And 3 minus 3 is 0. So that right there is the function. Those points is what I would need to draw. So I'm just going to do it here. Let's do it in red. -2, -3. Ding. That's my starting point. -1, -2. Ding. And 7, 0. That's like out here. And so you can kind of see my square. Oh, I missed. Boo. Wow. Okay, I missed again. Let's just make the point bigger. There you go. And you can kind of see it there, the square root value. You may be asked, what's the domain of this function? A domain is all the values that work. And so the domain will always be your starting point and going greater than that. So you'll always take the inside to find the domain. You set inside greater than or equal to 0. So I would do x plus 2 is greater than or equal to 0. And so x is greater than or equal to -2. That's how we graph. Again, that graph's not going to be very pretty. In future classes, you'll use graphing calculators and things like, or cool technology to get good graphs. We just want you to be able to come up with a basic graph for right now. Let's have you try on one. Here it is. Graph y equals the square root of x minus 2 plus 4. Go ahead and pause the video. Follow these steps here. You should also find the domain at the end. Graph and find domain. Unpause the video when you're ready to go. Okay, let's graph it. Let's do it. Step number 1, you gotta find the starting point. So we're gonna set x minus 2 equal to 0. And when I add the 2 over, I get x equals 2. So that is the value I am going to want to start with. I'm going to pick a value lower than that. Let's pick -1, and a value higher than that, 3. And I'd also like to get something that has an even root. Let's see, if I put 6 here, 6 minus 4 is, 6 minus 2 is 4. That'll work. Okay, good. Let's plug these values in. If I plug a -1 here, I get -1 minus 2. That's going to be a negative under the square root. That's not going to work. Let's plug 2 in. 2 minus 2 is 0, plus 4 is 4. Let's plug 3 in. 3 minus 2 is 1. Square root of 1 is 1. 1 plus 4 is 5. 6. 6 minus 2 is 4. Square root of 4 is 2. Plus 4 is 6. Okay. Let's go ahead and graph that really quick. We have to graph 2, 4, 3, 5, and 6, 6. And there it is. So again, it's not a line, it's a curve that goes like that. It's our square root function. And the domain? You bet. To find the domain, we just set the inside greater than or equal to 0. So x is greater than or equal to 2 when we add it over. Today we started the lesson talking about shoes. I even talked a little about Vans. Those might be your favorite shoes. But there is one type of shoe that is super important, and you can find it in Ephesians chapter 6 when talking about putting on the whole armor of God. Throughout your life, you're going to find that there are sharp things in your life. They're just laying on the floor sometimes. And if you are not prepared, if you're not wearing shoes, those things are going to hurt. I encourage you to always shod your feet with the preparation of the gospel of peace. As you are prepared and as you study the gospel, that's you putting on shoes. And if you step on something sharp, you're going to be blessed. Heavenly Father will watch out for you. So I always encourage you to do that and challenge you to do your very best to shod your feet. Thanks so much for watching today, and good luck to you on your future assignment. It's Brother O signing out.